Hi, Shirley. We have, yesterday we had really puffy, patchy water breeze. You know, kind of hard to tell a difference between big wind shifts and big gains on wind shifts and actually boat speed. Is it as puffy as we saw yesterday, or should this be a little more of a boat speed contest?
It's harder today, especially in that top half of the course. I mean, that's a massive island, 260 meters tall, and the top mark is right under it. It's going to be all on at the top half of this course. Real kind of extreme snakes and ladders.
Looking forward to hearing Shirley, who is our eyes on the water here, going around the world wherever you are. Welcome to Auckland, New Zealand, and choppy conditions today, Nathan. How much will that affect these forwarders? At all?
It's definitely choppy out there, and that's caused by the current that's coming out of Auckland Harbour. It's going against the wind, so for the wind strength of 12 knots out there, it is a bit choppier, but it's pretty small chop still, so probably not going to be a huge factor in terms of that performance. I think the real thing that Shirley touched on earlier is just the wind strength at the top of the course and how the teams handle getting through that gate.
On board American Magic, they have been the impressive performer after one day, and I'm not sure whether everybody expected American Magic to be so impressive, Ken.
The word on the street has been for a while that they're good, they're happy in the breeze, and maybe not quite as happy as the breeze gets lighter, but today we should have plenty of breeze for this first race. Supposed to get lighter as the afternoon goes, so we might see them have to run the whole gamut of weather conditions.
Minutes and 10 seconds when the Italians who have the port entry can come into the start box, and that is how it will work. Coming in from the starboard side will be American Magic, unbeaten yesterday, a win against Ineos by 5 minutes and by New Zealand by 12 seconds.
We've seen our first mistake of the day here, Nathan. I mean, it looked like Luna Rossa was really late in their setup, and now they're almost in a dial-up situation right now.
Yeah, Kenny, you can already see the red light flashing on the boat. They're going to get a penalty because they were inside that starting box before entry. And to me, it looked like Dean Barker went aggressive and went for the dial-up. Didn't end up panning out exactly how I was hoping it. But Luna Rossa are definitely on the back foot.
On board Luna Rossa, confirmation of the penalty. And that is certainly going to hurt their chances at the start of race 5, day 2 of the America's Cup World Series.
It sure seems like this setup is really causing trouble for these boats. They got to get up on the foils. We know that. You can't try to get out of the water until it's too late. We've seen people miss starts because of that. But that was just, my goodness, it just seemed like a complete timing error.
Happy to stay 2 boards. Yeah, probably. Killing 25. Keeping it.
Easy, Sito. Thank you.
Hold up here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pick it up here.
10 is.
Full speed here. Marginal late for us.
This is the umpires. Italy, you do have a penalty. You do have a penalty for early entry.
Going to be starting on board, okay? Probably.
So that's the voice of Dean Barker on board American Magic. Time and distance, and then Prada has to drop back behind American Magic to get rid of their penalty. And they're out of position.
And turning.
7 seconds to start. You heard Dean Barker call and turning, aiming up to the start line for race 5 of this America's Cup World Series. Remembering, penalty to Luna Rossa. And they are away and racing on day 2.
Rather unorthodox start, that one, wasn't it? Luna Rossa still have the penalty. They need to get behind.
This is the umpires. Italy, you have a penalty. You have a penalty.
They do that by trying to make a tack. These penalties are a little bit complicated to explain, but basically they've got to get 50 metres behind the other boat. And when you're on opposite tacks, it's really hard to judge, when this penalty is going to clear for them. But right now they're heading over to the left-hand side of the course, waiting for the umpires to turn this penalty off.
I mean, that was just, I don't know what was going on in that pre-start. Honestly, it was completely unorthodox, as you just said.
Penalty clear, penalty clear.
There we go. That is the voice of head umpire Richard Slater. And penalty clear means they just dropped a couple boat lengths back behind American Magic by just tacking a couple times, Nathan. So they've clearly talked about that as a strategy of how to clear a penalty.
Yeah, well, one of the things with these boats is that if you drop off the foils, the boat slows aggressively and takes a very long time to get going. As we see American Magic having a really bad tack here. Lots of leeward heel, windward foil didn't come up quick enough.
Reset here, reset.
Just trying to get on the foil.
Yep.
Moment of holding your breath for American Magic. You heard Dean Buck say, over, and they haven't gone over, but wow, how about that? Didn't see that one coming.
Very unstable, just maybe a timing issue with the boards. It could have been, I mean, literally, could be thousands of things. One of 1,000 things could go wrong. Here comes a replay, and we'll try to pick out what was actually wrong, Nathan.
To me, it looks like the windward board's not lifting up here quick enough. Windward board down for too long. Until that comes up, you don't get the riding moment of it coming up. Not only is it an issue, it tips the boat over. It's lifting all the time. You can hear them on board complaining about it.
Reset here, reset.
You got it?
I just don't get why they weren't easing the main sheet when that was happening too. Like, how hard is it? I'm sure it's not that easy, but I'm just thinking right now, if you're leaning over, you've got to either head up to depower, you've got to just twist the mainsail to keep the boat under control.
And it just gives you an indication of how these boats are being sailed on the edge. How crazy is that? Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, they get a penalty at the start. Suddenly, American Magic almost tipped the boat. And Patriots dead in the water for a moment, but they're back and forth. That's how good these boats are. Mistake, get them up, but how costly.
Oh, so costly. You remember the racing yesterday, American Magic didn't put a foot wrong. Nice tacks, clean tacks you see here now. That's a much better tack, and that's what they're expected to do on it every single time. And an error like that so early in the race is going to be very hard for them to get back into this one.
It'll be fascinating to ask whether that was a bug or that was just human error. You know, we just never know right now because there's so much new to all of us, including the sailors, by the way. It'll be fascinating to ask and maybe see if we get an actual answer to the question.
Shirley Robertson on the water. What did you make of that?
Stephen, I thought we were going to get our first capsize in slow motion. I mean, how dramatic, as Kenny said, we don't really quite know why. It would be great to speak to them at the end of the race. But just watching coming around the top mark, Rossa taking full advantage of American Magic's mistake.
So Rossa, Prada, Pirelli go around the top gate, and they are well in front of American Magic, who must be ruining that moment, that board struggling to get up. When we talk about weights of boards, how heavy are these boards to get up?
Well, I know, Nathan, there is an actual minimum weight on the board. It's why some of these boats actually have bulbs or torpedoes instead of just bigger wings.
American Magic now heading towards the top gate, and there must be some silent curses going on amongst that lead crew as to why that board didn't go up, and they gave away an advantage knowing that they were ahead of Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, who had picked up a penalty for an early entry into the start.
Hundreds of meters that turned into one mistake, turned into hundreds and hundreds of costly, hard-earned meters for the Americans. And these guys still, I mean, maybe they were lacking for pace at times yesterday, but they're always smooth. They're really smooth in their maneuvers. Now we've put the commentator's curse on them, of course.
Lighter at the bottom, yeah.
Kenny, going back to your earlier question, foil weight is just short of 1.4 tons. That's hanging out to windward there. So that's a lot of riding moment.
Numbers not
1.4 tons.
And like you said, it's probably lifting at the same time. So if it's in the water, it's doing two things. It's not out to weather where you want the weight, and it's probably lifting at the same time, creating a healing moment and turning the boat over even harder.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like to think there will be confidence from the fans of American Magic because we know how quick that boat was downwind yesterday.
We're about to find out. We'll do some timings here. That's really one of the feature. When the boat is so far apart, boats are so far apart, timing the legs gives you at least some semblance of an idea as to boat speed. And Nathan, they're going with bigger jibs here today too. Maybe even like a Code 2 jib.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a Code 2 jib. And I think they're probably setting up for the top of the course. The last thing you want to do is get caught being underpowered. So they're probably a little bit overpowered down the bottom part of the course where there's more wind. But the last thing you want to do is get caught at the top of your course underpowered and off your foils.
Yeah, easy.
A beautiful shot looking at it from up high from our Kelly shot. It looks like a missile going straight at, an X set on its target. The target, of course, being the bottom gate.
Gates have evened up a little bit as we've gone back.
Yeah.
Not right in favour, but work this down that top.
One thing we also haven't really commented on yet, Nathan, is the fact that that's an all-Italian boat except for one helmsman, and it kind of sounds to me like Jimmy hasn't had to learn a whole lot of Italian. That they've kind of switched their comms towards English. Couple jives here. This isn't a perfect setup coming into this leeward gate, but they just can't come off the foils. American Magic just learned that the hard way.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, heading into the bottom gate to complete 2 legs of 6. You're going to love it when those 2 foils go down. They just simply coast, and they're certainly not coasting around here because they are getting away like a robber's dog on American Magic. And believe it or not, how quickly did American Magic turn up at that bottom gate as well?
Those 2 jives really hurt him coming into the bottom gate, Nathan.
Yeah, I think that just shows you how much you lose if you have to do the extra jive. This really penalised them a lot. They did fall off the foils, but the boat slows down a lot when both of those foils are in the water. And now we have a split setup here. We've got a bit of separation, a bit of leverage between the 2 boats, and if there's any form of right-hand shift here, American Magic could be right back into this race.
Again, Stephen, it's one tiny mistake. My goodness, does it turn into a massive problem in a short period of time.
So we're heading upwind, heading towards the halfway point. This is leg 3 of 6, and already we've seen a penalty that allowed American Magic to get away. About halfway up the first leg, American Magic almost tipped the boat. Coming down to the bottom gate, what happens? Extra jive, and suddenly American Magic are back in the game.
Very accurate, Stephen. I'm proud of you for picking up on this stuff. Our rookie sailor in the booth.
Timmy just don't want to get stuck on the boundary because
you got it, boy.
Comes out again.
Shirley, we got a race.
We have a race, that's for sure. I'm not sure with American Magic, though, if it was all about that final manoeuvre. To me, they were rocking that run. They looked so fast. The bow down just looked to be eating up the distance. I think they've got wheels, particularly on those downwind legs. And interestingly, this course, 6 legs, another 2 downwind legs, to claw back into the Italians.
Yep, my wheel. He tags. Working this up straight away. If he hits us here, we've only got 20 the other way at the moment. We can almost punch through, give ourselves a bit, no problem with him. Working us up.
So that conversation there, Nathan, they were talking through a tactical scenario. If they got tacked on right there, were they going to try to tack twice? They decided they didn't have enough distance to the left-hand gate, to the left-hand side of the course. At some stage, he said, we'll just try to punch through, and then up. No harm, no foul. They continued anyway. But that's the type of conversation between a tactician and a helmsperson that's happening all the time.
Yeah, it was great comms off the boat there, and it's exactly what is happening every race. There's a scenario, we go with plan A, if the boat does this, we take plan B. These guys practice and train for this, at home, in the classroom. And what we see here right now is it looks like American Magic to Lewitt, but maybe something a little higher, starting to close the gauge a bit. They know there's 3 laps. They've just got to close the gap and try and put a bit more pressure on to draw a mistake on the final lap.
How encouraged have you, Dean Barker,
They're going either
to the
way
response
right
of what happened on that opening leg? And now look where you are. You're only almost approaching the halfway mark.
You can hear it in his voice.
Yep,
You know,
copy.
big gain either way. You know, this is a.
Got us 25.
We're all human, right? So he would have been very bummed out at that one maneuver. But all of a sudden, when you're back in the race, it's like, okay, we've been given a reprieve.
Overstand the green. Yeah, just green on the ley line. Yeah, copy. Okay, standing by, Goody. Anytime. 2, 1, board down.
Turn it.
Yep, my wheel. He's easy cross, but he'll be tacking in front.
He goes forward down, hits the lure.
Copy, working it up.
That's that position, Nathan, you talked about. The apparent wind is so tight on these boats, in essence, you have to tack
you know you got
directly in
pace. Take it
front,
to him.
really, to try to affect them.
Fans of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli happy with
Your
where their
mark,
boat is
Jim.
at the moment.
Yeah, face it up if you want.
American Magic will follow Prada Pirelli around the top gate to complete leg number 3 of 6.
2, 1.
But there is nothing in this as we remind you how quick American Magic is downwind. I'm sure Jimmy Spittle is all too aware of that.
They've got some pace, don't they, the Americans? Plenty of boat speed down here. This, I think, is going to be a really interesting downwind. I think it's a good chance to compare the speeds.
Yeah, 1.5 minutes below. Behind.
Just listen on board and hear the chatter.
Standing by. Anytime for me. 2, 1. Board down. He goes same time. Hit it, boys. Yep.
Just looked like a more powered up jibe on American Magic. These guys had to come up a little higher out of the jibe to kind of keep the thing flying.
Okay,
And
what's the plan
American
here,
Magic
boys?
just gained a little bit more again right there on that last maneuver. We've got a sailboat race here.
Copy. Copy.
You know, novices of this type of sailing, Kenny and Nathan, they'll be asking, Dean Barker knew exactly what was going on. He says, they're going to drive, we'll drive as well.
Yep.
Yeah, well, coming up to the boundary there's really not a huge choice, but
Work this down whenever you like.
again, everybody's blind in the boat, right? So he's almost doing their own play-by-play in order to keep the whole crew into the race and what exactly is going on.
20 seconds. Yeah, going to be standing by here, Goody. 13 to boundary. 10, anytime. 2, 1, down.
So let's go to Shirley Robinson on the water. How quick is American Magic in this race? And can you see the gains?
Well, they're slower perhaps on this leg than on the other downwind leg, but yeah, just inching forward. And I think Kenny hit the nail on the head, really. They just look more powered up. You know, they're rarely kissing the water. They're just keeping the boat high and flying, and seem to be able to do whatever they want with it. If I had to pick a boat to be in right now, it would definitely be the Americans, just slowly drawing them in.
Better just do the...
Yeah. He made nice
There's a
gains
shot
going
right
straight
off
into
the
the
back
tide
of the
out here. I
mast.
just
And
wonder.
by the way, for all
Early
of you
deck is not
Italian
great
fans
now,
out there, one of the reasons we're
So,
only hearing the voices
got.
coming off of American Magic is the comms, the specific comms that are on. 4 different members of the crew on Luna Rossa are down right now. So we are not doing this on purpose. We love hearing the comms coming off these boats.
Keep coming up.
Mark slow.
We're coming to a left-hand turn here.
Copy.
Happy for you to go anytime, Goody.
Steven, you're finding out that they don't need us in the booth anymore. We just have these guys mic'd up and they call the shots.
Going down in 3.
Here we go to the bottom
2,
gate, and
1,
it
here
is
we go.
not that much of a
What's in there?
difference. First to go round will be Rossa Prada Pirelli team. And it'll be
You're rounding?
an opposed rounding as American Magic take the right-hand marker as we see it, and they begin leg 5 of 6. They're on the home run.
Okay, standing by here. I'll stay. We should just get on the wind here first.
Nathan, they did a nice job. Francesco, Bruni, and Jimmy Spithill coming into that mark. They've minimized maneuvers and they forced American Magic to do a tough maneuver at the same time and maybe doubled out their lead again to a couple 100 meters from that single 100 meters.
Yeah, they did a great job picking that ley line from such a long distance away,
Get locked in here.
making sure the moting of the boat was correct, that they still laid the bottom mark and forcing the opponent to actually take the unfavored mark, do a harder maneuver. And now they're just rolling into attack on the starboard and getting back in phase with American Magic. It looks like they've made a reasonable gain and maybe a little bit of breathing space now.
We were talking a lot about American Magic coming back in this race, but on the other hand, you got to give Luna Rossa plenty of credit. They came back, they're pressed. You feel it in your bones, right? There's tension coming in. As the boat getting ground down, you feel the tension, but they kept their composure. He looks pretty, Francesco Bruni looks pretty relaxed right now, so that give them credit for fending off the press and actually starting to extend a little bit again.
When you look at Bruni in that shot there, it looks like he's out for a Sunday drive, but we know they're going at least 30 plus knots.
Shot of the day right there, boys and girls. We've never seen anything like this before, folks, and we're just starting to figure out how to do it, and it's something else.
45 that way. Feels like we should probably take it here pretty soon. Yep.
Approaching this top mark for the last time in this race. We're on leg 5 of 6. What's the play, Nathan, when you're American Magic, knowing that you have got some speed downwind? I know I keep harping on about that, but we've seen that in the first day already.
Yeah, they've got good speed, I think, downwind and upwind relative to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. But they're struggling to get around it, you know. They made that loss by taking a bit too much distance, the extra maneuver at the bottom of the course. Right now, they're talking about where they should tack, trying to get in phase with the wind shifts a little bit more. And they can't pass them by just following them because they're going to keep getting tacked on. Dirty air is going to slow them down. So they've got to find an avenue to go around them. And I think maybe their gains earlier on in that second lap were getting in phase with the shifty conditions out there. They've taken an opportunity to get out of phase. Let's see if they can pick up something on the left-hand side of the course.
Rough rock could be an issue for us here.
Interesting watching the bow and the front of that boat, Nathan, how it's actually touching the water for the first time. I wonder whether, because that runs pretty flat, American Magic, doesn't it? And that's how choppy it is out there today.
Yeah, that chop is definitely, you know, there's a few chop and troughs out there and they're just skimming the hull. Little touchdown every now and then seals the air to the boat perfectly, but if you touch it too hard, it's too much drag.
Fascinating that Luna Rossa has decided to split here. Yesterday in the race between American Magic and the Kiwis, we saw hard, tight match racing, and these guys kind of probably saw the shifts. They decided to let it go. They decided the shift was less of a risk than it was to try to start tacking with American Magic, and boy, oh boy, Nathan, it looks like it worked.
Yeah, looked like big left-hand phase through the middle there. Luna Rossa realised they could make it to the top marks in one more tack, get to the ley line, minimise the manoeuvre, and big gains for them.
Stop it. Biggies on J.
So for the last time in race 5, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli flies into the top gate. They have about a 300-metre lead on American Magic. Looking back at this race, you're going to say, how did they manage that?
Some big wind shifts out there, Shirley.
massive, Kenny, and I think you could see it on the screen. They picked the right-hand side. The Italians weren't phased that entire beat, and just sailed smart, sailed clean, and wasn't phased with the breeze. The breeze is now up. You can see that they are motoring down in this final leg of the race.
You saw, Nathan, they were trying to let the Traveler down, and there's a boat at the other end. You kept clanking it off the edge of the
hitting the stopper, wasn't it? It was like just Traveller smash, smash, and I guess that's at that point you got to steer. If you can't ease anymore, you got to steer to it.
One more down.
We are on the homeward run in race number 5 between Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, who have about a 280-meter lead on American Magic, who are unbeaten in the America's Cup World Series to this point. They picked up that 5-minute win against Ineos and the 12-second win yesterday against Emirates Team New Zealand, while Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli were gifted a win after Ineos' troubles and were beaten by 3 minutes and 13 seconds by Emirates Team New Zealand. So this will be a huge morale booster for Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli as they look on. But look at those speeds. 43-odd knots by Italy.
And we haven't, it ain't over yet, because we saw one splash down meant 700 meters. They look smooth. The Prada boat looks smooth through maneuvers. We haven't really seen them make a big maneuver mistake. Even in the race that they lost yesterday, they didn't really make a big maneuver mistake.
Sailing very smoothly, very consistently, and took control of this race early on through a mistake of their competitor, and from then onwards got the elbows out when the challenge came, and now they're just looking forward. No one's looking backwards. Everyone knows that they have to focus on their own jobs to get it to the finish line.
How important in this America's Cup to capitalize quickly on that one mistake?
Well, that's sailboat racing in a sense, and you have to capitalize, because you're going to be shredded if you don't. Boat speed's one thing, but tactics and capitalization on other people's mistakes, it's a must. It's a must to be successful in this sport. The two-headed monster is still doing okay, Nathan.
That boat's going just fine. Just fine.
And for those of you just joining us, Luna Rossa is the only boat out there that the helmsmen actually don't switch sides. Francesco Bruni drives on port tack, and Jimmy Spithill drives on starboard tack. It's a totally novel approach to how to do this. Nobody switches sides.
I would love to have known what those Luna Rossa fans were chanting at the America's Cup Village, but certainly wasn't Bella Bella. Whatever it was, it would be Bella, because here comes Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli to pick up win number 2, and a win for real this time too, against the unbeaten American Magic in race 5. Huge result for them, even if it's just a psychological win, as American Magic coming behind them and cross the finish line. Considering that they almost tipped the boat,
Here we go.
that's a hell of a result.
Just great commentary from Dean Barker in that race, and again, it shows you how blind I think Nathan, the leeward side of the boat is. So I have a feeling that whoever is steering to windward is over-communicating in order to just keep that leeward side of the boat in the game. They don't know. You can't see anything, right?
It's the only way to keep not just the people on the leeward side of the boat, but your grinders who are powering the boat, and they need to know how many seconds to the next maneuver, because they're shifting gears and changing all the different hydraulic functions on board. So you're basically doing a play-by-play of what you're thinking is going to happen and how the race is going to pan out. Otherwise, the guys up front ask you what happened when the race is over.
Did we race?
I think they know they raced.
There will be happy, smiling faces aboard Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli team, getting what you would consider their first genuine win after being awarded one against Ineos yesterday. Let's confirm the race result. Wow, how about that? Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli beat American Magic by 12 seconds, the same margin that American Magic beat Emirates Team New Zealand yesterday.
pre-start was one of the strangest pre-starts I've ever seen in my life, Jimmy, and I've seen a few of them. Luna Rossa was really late coming in to try to get into their position, and in fact got a penalty for being outside the box. And then all of a sudden both boats start on port tack. Luna Rossa, knowing that they have to, they were late on America. It just, everything was disjointed in that first pre-start. But the fact remained, Luna Rossa had to burn off a penalty, and it was very interesting. They burned it off by tacking twice. But then came the big one, and I'll let you call this because I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, it looks like obviously a bad tack. It looks like they just got way too much fluid heel on the exit. Foil was late to come up. Sails didn't get eased off. One thing we know is you've got to sail the boat flat at all times. Anytime you heel to leeward at all here, as you see, is the exit here. The heel calms, the foil's not coming up, the main sheet's not getting let off at all. And all of a sudden over she goes. You've basically got to stop, put the boat back in the water, reset, ease the sails off, and it's a long, slow build from there. You see here, this is the moment it all goes wrong. That foil is just tipping the boat over. It's not coming up perfectly. Sail's not getting let off right now. Very hard to recover from that.
The sails just never really got let off, and I'm sure that is a major project in its own right. But back they came. They were behind by 700 meters was American Magic. Next thing you know, they're a few boat lengths behind. And let's give credit where credit is due. The Luna Rossa group did not panic. They actually stretched it back out again. They sailed confidently. They sailed well. They put themselves in between themselves and the American Magic and the mark when they had to, and then they stretched it out and found a really nice couple of wind shifts to come across with a 12-second victory at the end. And you know what? We're seeing a real regatta. This is great. Nobody running away.
On board Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli right now. Let's go to one of the twin helmsmen, Francesco Bruni, who joins us right now. Francesco, congratulations on the win, but what happened at the start to draw the penalty?
Happened on the start. Yeah, everything happened on the start. We had some problems with the timing again, and it was a little bit frustrating to have that penalty, but we cleared it off, and we did a fantastic race after that, so I'm very proud with the team.
You should be proud. Hi, Francesco. Ken Reed. Hey, going up that beat, all of a sudden you see that you see the other boat having troubles. That was on your side of the boat, so that's why I can ask you the question. You guys don't swap out. Did you see what happened with American Magic during that bad tack? I don't think we have Francesco at this stage. So. Oh, he's back. Did you see what happened? Did you see what happened to American Magic during that tack? Because they were on your side, and you probably had bird's eye view.
Problem. Still a big problem. This can system for everybody. I think that's what the Americans had on that moment.
Got it. Thank you, Francesco. Nice job. Congratulations.
On board to American Magic, helmsman Dean Barker. Dean, crazy race. Can you tell us what happened with your foil cant arm?
Yeah, well, it was a bit frustrating, to be honest. We had a nice position, and it just didn't come up out of the tack, and unfortunately, that was kind of put us on the back foot. But really impressed with how well we got back into the race a couple of times, and we were a long way back a couple of times, and sort of kept coming back at them. So I think a lot of positives to take out of it, but frustrating not to get the win.
So that was Dean, Kenny Reed. That was then, you think, a mechanical error and not a human error coming out of that tack.
We got to check. It's it seemed to work okay after that, but these boats, pretty difficult at times. You're never quite sure what the issue is, but yeah, if in doubt, blame the boat.
Cracking race. Good to watch. We'll see you again on the water later on.
Yeah, sure, thanks.
Here is our moment, our key moment of the race, and that was the tack. The tack went from, like Dean said, completely controlling position after the penalty had to get assessed to Luna Rossa and bad tack. Like you said, I don't think any of these guys ever really know what went wrong until they come in and probably look at all the data afterwards, Nathan. But one thing is for sure, bad tack, no matter what kind of boat you're in, an Opti or a America's Cup boat, and you're going to lose. And they lose a lot when there's a problem like this.
Yeah, well, one thing's for sure, there's a lot of people reviewing the data of these boats. You know, by the time the race is over and they're back on shore tonight, someone in the team will have identified, was that human error, or was the button that they were pushing, bringing the board up, not sending the signal to that black box?
No place to hide.
There's nowhere to hide on these boats. I've been there so many times. You'd think, no, that wasn't me. I didn't push that button. And someone goes, I'm sorry. It's really obvious that you did.
That's fantastic.